I have with me Nikita Luther.
People really think that poker is just gambling.
Right.
It's actually a mental sport.
In tournament poker, I mean, patience is key, right?
Poker is a game you play against yourself.
100%.
Your biggest enemy is you.
So what was your why for taking up the game and taking this path?
The idea of beating so many people with your intellect, that was my why.
A myth that people believe when it comes to poker.
That poker is like teen patti.
You recently also did do something on TV, right? How was that as an experience?
Traitors was an interesting experience. My thing was taking the absolute backseat, let all of them fight it out, eliminate each other, while I slide by.
That's tournament strategy, right?
That's tournament strategy, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was crazy that it actually worked. I managed to survive till the end.
What kind of fitness routine would you be following, both on the physical side and the mental side, when you're going to prep for a tournament like that?
Nothing prepared me for the whole series of poker and the 10-day format that it was, because the pressure really starts mounting.
Poker is like life because... Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Chat with GB. Today's podcast is going to be a killer, all right? Because we have someone with us who is going to bring to the podcast a bit about game theory, strategy, poker, and a lot more. I have with me Nikita Luther, who 2 years ago went as far as you can possibly go on the World Series of Poker, which is, doing one of the best that an Indian person has ever done there, has had multiple wins in multiple tournaments around the world. And today's podcast is going to be about poker. It's going to be about strategy. It's going to be about business. It's going to be about lessons for life as well, and from the poker table. Nikita, welcome to Let's Chat with GB.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I've been following some of your content, and I really like that it's insightful, deep, meaningful, and I'm so glad I'm here.
And thank you for making the time. I know you're in Delhi for a very, very short time, and you made time to be here. So thank you so much for that.
I'm happy to be here, especially with a poker enthusiast, somebody who understands the language. And it's going to be a fun chat.
Absolutely. And again, I think, we'll bring in a lot of the poker piece into, like I said, the life and the business. So really looking forward to this one.
Yes.
So not too far ago, like it was 2023, WSOP, the biggest poker tournament in the world.
Yeah.
And you go to day 6, was it? Where you actually come you're in the top 100 for sure.
Exactly. It was day 6. I still remember I hadn't slept in 3 nights because the main event is truly a marathon. You might think that poker is something you sit and play.
Right.
But the amount of decision fatigue that creeps in. And firstly, you're playing for 15 to 16 hours.
Right.
Non-stop with 20 minutes break every 2 hours. You can't just get up and say, hey, I'll come back in a bit. You just have to stay there every day under all that pressure, making decisions. And each decision is possibly worth millions and millions of dollars.
Right.
And also they made a whole story around me because I was one of the first few females to, hold a chip lead for those many continuous days.
Correct.
So all the spotlights were on me, all the interviews. So every time I even stepped away from the table, I had to give all those interviews. So that kind of pressure for the first time, even after all that experience that I've accumulated, really got to me. The exhaustion, the fatigue, the pressure. But it was still so exhilarating, like being an Indian woman, making in the top 100 out of 10,000 people, fighting for $12 million. Nothing like it.
And just to put that in context, this is like the Olympics for poker, right? The WSOP is as big as it gets. There is no bigger event. $10,000 buy-in, which is like 8.5 lakh rupees or more today. And you have 10,000 odd people now vying for the top prize as well.
Exactly.
So, wow.
So that's 8 with 9 zeros in front of it.
A lot of money.
Or 9
a lot
with,
of money. Right? And I remember looking at some of those pictures where the winner gets a potload of cash, right? So the cash is like stacked up in a mountain, and
that's
it's just like
for
that.
effect. I wonder if it's even real cash. I'm sure it is. It's a casino, right?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a banquet hall. I don't know if it's real cash. They just put it there for effect. Yeah.
I know. And then you have like guards that will walk in with the money and they'll make it look real, just like Hollywood style. Yep.
It's surreal. It's larger than life. Something like why I started off by telling you about how the pressure gets to you, because people really think that poker is just gambling.
Right.
It's actually a mental sport.
100%.
You're actually competing like an athlete, and that is like the intensity is something else. Every decision is so important.
Agree 100%. In fact, back in the day when people would ask me, "Hey, so what sport are you playing nowadays?" And so I was playing a bit of golf, and I'd say I'm playing poker, and they look at me and they're like, "Okay, golf we can somewhat understand, but dude, when did poker become a sport?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, it totally is a sport, right?"
It's interesting you said golf and poker because a lot of golf players become very good poker players because it takes that same level of mental focus and that fixation and we call it the zone or the flow, or if you're getting into flow states. And golfers talk about it, while they play a game of golf.
Right.
How they make the best decisions and optimal decisions when they're in a state of flow. That's when you lose all sense of time and you're just there in the present moment. And that's when you really, you unlock some superhuman abilities inside your brain. And poker and golf have the ability to do that.
Absolutely agree. And I think even in business today, I think one of the things that, a lot of people need is patience. And I think that's what poker teaches you.
Exactly.
Because, you being a tourney player, okay, we'll go, sometimes maybe 30, 40 minutes before you enter a hand, right? So there's a lot of those just waiting and watching. In cash games, a little less. But in tournament poker, patience is key, right?
Exactly. Patience, discipline, consistency. There could be days like when we play multi-day tournaments, there could be an entire day where you barely played 1 or 2 hands the whole day.
Wow.
So that mental mastery, more than patience, is the mental mastery. Like poker is a game you play against yourself.
100%.
Your biggest enemy is you. So you really it's like some sort, I don't know, it's like that's the beauty of the game that I really enjoy.
Right.
And I always say that poker is a game that teaches you so much about yourself.
Right.
And this philosophy that I come with, that you don't have to win the hand, you have to win the tournament.
Right.
Or even in a cash game, you don't have to win that specific hand.
Right.
You just have to be profitable at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that is a kind of mental switches that you learn. Like you can apply that in your day as well. That some days will just be low, and that's completely fine.
Correct.
As long as the overall trajectory and a trend line is going upwards.
Awesome.
And that's basically it. Survival, trend line going up.
Yeah.
There will be ups and downs in between. You can't let the downs really define your moods.
Right. Agree completely. And again, so much like golf, because you are playing against, yourself. It's about, getting behind every shot and, you have a bad shot. How do you recover from there? You have a bad hole or a string of bad holes, how do you really recover from there? So very much, similar as well.
Exactly.
Let's go back to, of course, we spoke about the WSOP. We'll talk about some of your other big wins. I know you had a big one at the Aria as well.
Yeah.
And the Aria Poker Room is a great poker room. It's probably one of my favorites, in the world as well. But let's go back to where it all began. You're an Air Force officer's daughter. Obviously, you've traveled a lot, different schools possibly as well. I was hearing somewhere that math was, your strong point.
Yeah.
And you slipped into poker when your mom wasn't, doing too well. And that's how you got into poker.
Yes.
From there, how do you end up at, the IPC in 2015, which you ended up winning as well? So how do you go from there to, getting into the IPC and winning that too?
Yeah. Well, like you pointed out that I was very interested in math. It wasn't that I'm some child prodigy or something like that. It was just that if you tell me a concept one time, it will just always stick and I will be able to replicate it with if you give me that formula, tell me how to arrive and LHS equal to RHS.
Course,
I would always make it, whatever. I ended up getting perfect scores in math because I just love the idea of applying pattern recognition.
Correct.
So poker is a game of pattern recognition. It's actually not mathematics. There is not calculation.
Right.
It is strategy. It is pattern recognition. It is understanding the consequences of each move you make, attract counter consequences, and then coming towards what we call a Nash equilibrium in game theory optimal strategies. So just understanding how all of that works, how the game tree condenses to the profitable solutions. It's somebody when your brain is a little wired to understanding patterns and mathematics. So that is actually where it comes in from.
Sure.
So I was so fascinated by the theory of the game. And I realized that it's not a game of chance and that if you just apply yourself in certain ways, you can make the profitable decisions.
Correct.
So I was just playing because I was so interested in it. And then I got noticed by a company back then, one of the first few companies at Adda52 that started the idea of online poker legally, proved that it's a game of skill.
Right.
They approached me and they said, we want you to work with us. We see something interesting in you, you're a marketable personality. I said, I'm not leaving my conventional job. I was working in some digital ad agency. And I said, no, I'm not going to leave my job to become a poker player. And they said, okay, fine, we'll give you a job as well. We're starting something called the Poker Sports League. And we want you to build it with us. So you can have a job and you can represent.
That's
and I'm like, this is too good to say no to. This is like, an offer too good to refuse. And they said, you can travel the World Series of Poker. You can travel the world and play poker. We will sponsor you. And the rest is history.
Awesome. Yeah, Adda52 was truly one of the first movers. I remember at our gifting company, we even did all the deck of cards that they used to give out. So those were made by us for Adda as well. So I do recall working with them, in the early days. And of course, they had a massive payout when all was looking good in the online poker space. Good people. Good people. Awesome. So you end up winning the 2015 Ladies Indian Poker Championship.
Exactly. So I found myself in Goa playing some games, and then I won, and you know how they say tasted blood. I've always been very ambitious, actually. That's something. And whatever I do, I just want to be the best at it. Very ambitious. More so to just curious about my own human potential, not to, not to prove anything to anyone or whatever. It's just like, how far can I push the envelope? And that is where my fire comes from.
Love it.
And that is what poker enabled me to do. To keep pushing the envelope, keep competing in tournaments, So IPC was one of the first few wins, and then I saw what it feels like to hold a trophy, and I'm like, I want all of them.
And then you decided to go to the Mecca of poker, which is obviously Las Vegas.
Exactly.
And 2018 was it when you actually took down a tag team title and won a bracelet?
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been a crazy feeling, right? And there's also a video somewhere you come out with the Indian flag, and I think that must have been like a crazy feeling.
Yeah, goosebumps. You mentioned the Arya Poker Room, which is a lovely poker room, which is where I actually had these back-to-back final table runs.
Right.
Finished 5th in my first year in Vegas, and a couple of years later, I finished 2nd. Heads up, Ace King versus Ace Queen.
And a bigger takedown in terms of prize money was even
bigger. And a bigger
right?
takedown.
Yeah.
But see, poker really teaches you how to deal with the blows of life, because we were almost even in chips. I was a little ahead, and I had Ace King.
Right.
And the other guy had Ace Queen, and we just went all in, heads up for all the chips, trophy, title, everything. And the Queen comes on the board, and the chances of that happening are like 28% or something, right? 30%, something like that. Depending on the suits and all of that.
Right.
So to be favorite to win that spot, and because even if the Queen comes in, I can have the King and still win.
Right.
So dealing with that blow was a big one, obviously, because I was still very early on. It was probably one of my first few shots at a proper big title, and that is the kind of resilience this game creates.
So true.
You take, everybody says it's gambling. See if Ace King is the right one. Why did the one with Ace Queen win? Of course, it's a game of chance. But the whole skill is playing the long-term game. So 100%. Poker teaches you to always think of the long-term versus short-term.
Right.
So you just have to put in enough volume to be on the right side of that variance and learn to deal with the blows, get back up and keep fighting. And those are the kind of lessons it teaches you.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that, you have to go several days sometimes, like in the WSOP. I mean, I guess to win and take the tournament down, it's probably going to be 10 days by the time you're done.
Exactly.
So what's
11.
11 days?
Yeah.
Crazy. So what kind of, fitness routine would you be following both on the physical side and the mental side when you're going to prep for a tournament like that?
First thing I would do is meditation. Then I would get in a bit of, just get my heart rate up, 20-minute workout. Because you can't have a huge workout routine, or like a big thing before the tournament. There's not that much time.
Yep.
Take a cold shower, have some, eggs and some clean breakfast. That's a routine going into it, preparing for it. But the thing is that nothing prepared me for the World Series of Poker and the 10-day format that it was, because the pressure really starts mounting.
Right.
All these people, watching you, reaching out to you. The money is big, the glory is big, and after all my years of experience, I just didn't know how to deal with it. There was just so much adrenaline. I was not able to sleep. I was just replaying all the hands again and again in my head. I'm lying there in bed trying to fall asleep, but you're so full of adrenaline, full of like overthinking. It's so hard to shut the brain. Like I said, it's a mentally testing
For sure.
game, and but where it comes to like everyday routine of like playing tournaments, I think the few things that you do, the meditation, all of it basically to make your brain work
Right.
optimally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all you are trying to solve for. That's what you're trying to optimize
Yeah.
for.
And again, for some outsiders, you might be thinking, oh, poker, I mean, you just walk in and you just, crush it. But like you said, there's so much that goes into it. And over the years, I've seen some amazing players, like some of the Europeans who would come down to Macau and play. And they were so
Yeah.
dedicated. Like, it was right from what they were drinking on the table, to, their exercise routines and what they were eating
Yeah.
and everything else and how they were taking breaks. And then you just realize, okay, that a professional is a professional for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And the amateurs are like, oh, get me all the drinks that you can. They're like
Yeah.
sloshed and everyone's like, just their recreation.
I'm glad you
and
brought
fun.
this up. I've probably never had a alcoholic drink on a poker table
Wow.
in a proper tournament.
Yeah.
I have never ever. Like,
Yeah.
it's different when you're sitting with friends in a house,
Of course.
but in professional tournament, you just can't mix alcohol in
You can't.
poker,
Yeah.
because it's like having drinks while playing a professional game of chess. It's not. You have to be optimally
100%.
functioning. Yeah.
Right, 100%. And it's true. And, it's a very interesting story. So I was at the Bellagio last, in January. And there's this guy sitting next to me and he's doing pretty well. It's a cash game. And I think poker is just a great way to spend your evenings, after you're done with work and everything else. And on a 1-3 table, you can't do much damage anyway. So this guy sitting next to me and he's doing relatively well, and he's just drinking whiskey sour after whiskey sour, and he wasn't tipping the waitresses, so as a result the waitresses stopped coming to him, and then eventually started going to the bar and getting drinks, and him and I got chatting, and turned out that he was from Karachi, Pakistan, and
okay.
and he's like, oh, I'm having a great time and I'm winning. I'm like, yeah, you're doing good, but maybe you shouldn't be drinking as much. And he's like, no, theek hai, I can handle it and everything else. And then you could see that the luck element was now going, and he was starting to lose the edge, and I'm like, you should get up. And he's like, आप हिंदुस्तानी हो, मैं पाकिस्तानी हो, इसलिए आप मुझे ऐसा बोल रहे हो. And he got all emotional and stuff, right? And obviously he's already like 8-9 drinks down now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really, I think you should quit. And he's like, नहीं, अभी तो मैं सबको, साफ करके जाऊंगा, just like anyone else would say in a cash game, right? And eventually, obviously, he lost everything. And he started, putting up more money from his wallet. And he lost all of that as well. Then looking at me, he's like, Kash, main chhod ke chale jata. I'm like, dude, this city you're sitting in has been built on people like you, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny, right? Some of the experiences that you might have on a table.
I think you put it perfectly. Like, the professionals are playing a completely different game versus the guys who are playing recreationally or for fun or drinking and playing. Like the professional poker player playing poker is a entirely different game.
Yeah. And I think, you could get lucky for a while. And, perhaps this happens, even in business, and it's a lesson for, business and startups. Sometimes you could get lucky doing some crazy stuff. But eventually, it's going to boil down to, the skill. It's going to boil down to, everything else, right? Exactly. And you will end up, blowing your account sooner rather than later. Yeah. So for sure.
Yeah. And another thing is, the concept of tilt. I'm sure you're well aware of it.
Right.
Tilt is when you're just so frustrated because something unfair happened to you, right? And you're just tilted because you made the right decisions, but it still didn't go your way, or you still lost a hand. And just being able to be like mastering that mindset, getting on top of tilt. And like you mentioned, this Pakistani guy, he was just playing on tilt. And he's like, oh, I've lost so much money, now I should put more. And these are just bad decisions. So anything that's making you off center is making you make bad decisions. You should recognize you're on tilt. So learning that and being able to master that in poker just turns you into a different beast out in the real world.
100%.
There's a traffic jam, people are honking, people are aggressive. You're unperturbed because you know that, you being aggressive in return is not going to solve anything. And, that's just an example.
Correct.
So that type of mental mastery is something you really
100%.
build.
And we could be on tilt in so many places. If you're running, a company, it could happen if you lost, an order and you just, tend to go kind of crazy on that side. Or, with a colleague, if you had, a bust out and then that could take you on tilt as well. So many guys who are trading the stock markets, because a lot of guys today are trading the markets, and they have a bad position in a derivative trade, especially. And then they say, oh, I can double up and I can double up and I can double up. And they just end up losing everything, So it happens there as well.
Exactly. I think your examples are much better than getting stuck in traffic.
No, but it applies there too, right?
But
And you
yeah,
see
startups, people making decisions, if they've lost one big order or like
Right.
somebody pulled out funding or something happened last minute, because all those things are
Happen.
going to happen.
Things will happen for sure.
And how do you recover from that? How fast you recover from that? Because it
Right.
is going to throw you off center for a bit. You're just trying to shorten that time frame.
Agreed.
And yeah.
Yeah, and of course, while the tilt piece was there, I think another very important lesson from poker is also about risk management, right?
Mm.
So, any advice that you want to give people on risk management in terms of, a lot of times people think that, oh, I have, enough money and I can go and gamble it all. And sometimes companies go and do this in business as well, where they'll hire expensive, they'll get some startup money, they'll hire like crazy, they'll move into fancy offices, they'll start spending like crazy on digital marketing. And they haven't really, gone ahead and kind of evaluated risk. I mean, I know that happens, in business, but what about the poker table? Like, where is that happening there?
My thesis is this, that my ability to take risk is directly proportional to how much theory I am confident that I know. So if I have the theory behind it, that these are the certain types of moves that I have to make, I will, and this is going to be profitable in the long run, and it's theoretically, mathematically proven.
Right.
I will keep playing that game again and again. I will do the exact same thing in the exact same spot with the exact same money every time, because I know in the long term it will give me the right profitable, because it's equation, it's a mathematical equation. Mm-hmm. So your ability to take risk completely relies on your confidence and your knowledge of what you know is considered to be theoretically true.
Correct.
B, of course, if you are not entirely sure, you're feeling your way in, and hedging the risk that you're taking. So maybe say, okay, for example, in a poker game, you can just say, okay, today this is the amount I'm willing to lose, and I'm going to come back, or these are the number of hours that I'm willing to play.
Right.
And just going in with a pre-decided thing and really sticking to it, because in game you could tilt and step over it. So it has to be completely pre-decided. You can't decide in game. So by that I mean hedging in the sense like your bankroll managing.
Of course.
You've already spread it over a few days, over a few hours. You planned that whole thing and then you just stick to that plan. Yeah. So sticking to the plan is another way of risk management. The third way of risk management is, of course, it's the worst way, but trial and error. Yeah. You just wouldn't know till you don't try.
Correct.
And challenging yourself. And I think that third element of risk is, I would put it as some intangible return on investment, because actually you're kind of paying to learn.
So true.
You're okay to lose that. So that is what the kind of risk I tell people to take when they're learning, starting out poker. I'd say if you're going out on a weekend out with your friends and you're spending whatever, 5,000 rupees on a weekend out between movies, lunches and some beverages. Take that 5,000 rupees, invested in a tournament. You will lose, for sure you will lose. But what you will learn along the way, you can apply, you can reset and apply. So instead of going out, this is your entertainment budget. So that's the kind of risk you take as a learning. The return is in learning.
Agree. Yeah. So again, for all our viewers and listeners, a good lesson in the fact that you have to be disciplined. You have to know when to walk away, because I think that's one big mistake that people make. And I think you talk about the sunk cost fallacy and all of that.
Exactly.
And sometimes it happens, in work, it happens in relationships where you've invested so much time and so much money. Like, how can I potentially ever walk away from this? Either like I said, a business, a job, a relationship. But you just have to know when it's time to cut your losses and actually, walk away as well. And of course, bankroll management. Money is limited, irrespective of whoever you are. So when you draw the line and say that, okay, this is enough. This is all I'm willing to, burn. This is all I'm willing to let go. So I think those are very important, lessons as well.
Yeah. So having frameworks in place.
Yeah.
Being very clear on the frameworks, being very disciplined. It's important. If you don't want to be disciplined, by all means, go play blackjack in a casino. But if you really want to challenge yourself, you really want to learn this game, then you have to approach it in a slightly scientific way. Because if you're not doing it, everyone else is doing it. The regs are doing it. The regular players, who we say regs. Everyone's approaching it very scientifically.
Yeah.
So
It's very interesting where you mentioned even about blackjack and stuff, because sometimes I've seen people do well at a tournament, okay, cash out some good amount of money, and they're like, oh, now let me go and double up in roulette or blackjack as well, and including some of the pros, in India and abroad as well. And they end up dropping a lot of that. And then, in poker, you've fought for that money, especially in a tournament, right? It's taken you hours, if not days, to win that money. And in blackjack, roulette's gone like in minutes or hours.
Yeah.
That hurts sometimes.
I know, but then that's a completely different agenda, right? You're not trying to prove anything to anyone, least of all yourself. Like in poker, you're trying to prove that, hey, I can solve this situation.
Yeah.
In blackjack, nothing is in your control. Then you're just playing for the thrill of it. So you're unlocking different motivations in both ways. So some people just find the thrill of it, like, okay, now whatever, I don't care. This is so.
But again, that's not like the pro mentality. Do you end up playing any other table games or not really?
Zero.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero. I find it so dull because you're not applying your brain at all.
Right.
You're not doing anything. You're just deciding where to put money. And then whatever happens, and usually the house has an edge. Why would I be so dumb as to play a game where I have zero edge?
Yeah. The casino always wins end of the day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's bizarre. And sometimes there's stuff on Instagram and this guy's like, I have cracked the roulette system. And he's like talking about how you cover like everything and leave just, those 3 numbers. And I'm like, dude, what if those 3 numbers would actually, hit?
Yeah.
Everything that you made is gone. So even blackjack, the movies like, 21, which just said, blackjack is so mathematical, etc. But most places like Macau, they would shuffle every hand. So now the card counting is gone.
Yeah.
And the casinos have figured that out.
Yeah.
So
I don't understand the counting thing, but I know everything is now electronic. And it's just impossible.
It's gone. There is no card counting, right? And my dad, we used to go as kids, with him and, like see him play and stuff.
Where did you go?
So Nepal initially, because Nepal was the only place where you had, gambling earlier on. And then, so we would still travel to different casinos. So my dad, when he took us on a holiday, growing up as kids, the only reason he took us out is there had to be a casino in that city or that town. So I think kind of rubbed off, on the family. And he's not a poker player. He plays bridge and he's really good at bridge. In fact, he's probably out playing bridge right now as well. So they play bridge, every day.
So bridge is a very strategic game as well.
It is.
Yeah.
But for fun, he'd still play, a blackjack, bit of roulette. just for time pass.
Yeah.
But poker, he never really took up. Though I think he would do pretty good if he did, because he's really, really good. Do you believe in luck? And, so he talks about this thing, like there's a pyramid, okay? And then sometimes you have these guys on top who super lucky, and they're just very few of them who are on top. And then as you come down, you have like everyone else who's like not really that lucky. But do you have any thoughts on luck playing a big role in poker and in games and stuff like that?
No, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. I'm a little surprised at that pyramid theory because, I say something very cheesy, but I always say that the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Sure.
And I'm a big believer in that. And I've seen it in practice with people around me.
Right.
It's just you're taking many more chances to unlock that luck,
Okay.
But it's just about taking chances, about working harder. It's a complete mental shift as well. There are some people who are just wired in ways that they don't think much of themselves. I believe that you're limited by the mental image and whatever you believe of your environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. If you put a shark in a fish tank, it will grow up to 8 inches.
Right.
You put the same shark in the ocean, it'll grow to 8 feet.
Right.
So that's exponential growth, right? So what changed for the shark? His own perceived glass bowl.
Right.
Just the environment that changed, the way he perceives the world around him or her.
Yeah.
Sharks are it.
I guess.
So how you perceive the world around you is how much you grow. How you perceive your own capabilities is how much you grow.
So true.
So the pyramid that you're talking about, I think the people at the bottom of the pyramid just don't believe much of themselves.
Right.
So it's a change in your mindset. It's a change in boosting your own confidence, of educating yourself, of working harder.
Right.
All these things are going to put you at the top of the pyramid and unlock an extra amount of that you just look lucky.
Yeah.
I look lucky to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I have done a lot of work to get there.
Oh, 100%.
And
100%.
so I don't really believe luck is anything. Luck is just
something that you create.
It's something you create, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Because, and again, this is just from observation. And there was this one gentleman who'd play a lot with, my dad and his friends. And he was just so lucky that everyone stopped playing with him. And we're talking about, again, bridge, maybe a bit of rummy as well. Eventually, just to get people to play, like in golf, you have a handicap, and this person would say, okay, everyone else on this table is 20,000 rupees up and I'm a lakh down. By the time the evening would finish, okay, he's still up every time. But he could only get people to play with him if he gave them that handicap, because otherwise he was cleaning them out every time, which is crazy. Right. So he's one of those guys. So he truly is one of those guys, like even in business, he'd be like, he'd walk into a deal and there's like, that top CEO sitting right next to him at a bar. He's like, hey, we met yesterday and, let's go ahead and do this. So like deals were closing for him. And of course, super, wealthy and just truly had that golden touch. But again, maybe it's so. Yeah, I think he burnt a lot of bridges with a lot of people, and as a result of which, no one wanted to actually hang out with him, which is kind of sad actually. But he was, I think, the guy was on top of the pyramid. But I agree, and I would agree with you on the harder you work, the luckier you get. I mean, truly, it's one of my mantras as well.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know about this specific story in isolation, and I don't have the complete picture. I don't know if this is a narrative that he has built around him because, to sort of program everybody around him to think that way. I don't know. So there's a certain way, like if you notice Donald Trump, right? You will see the way he talks. He will always use superlatives like, this is the most fantastic building that has ever been built in the history of the world. And this is the most amazing thing that has ever been invented. I will create the best policy. So there's a way he talks. It's always superlative, larger than life, the best of everything, the mecca of everything. That it's a language these people speak. So it seems like they're unlocking different levels because he is so lucky. But it's actually him projecting that in a way that everybody,
perhaps.
Yeah, nothing woo-woo. I'm just saying in a way that everybody is biased to be believing it. Everybody gets biased to see that vision. Everybody gets biased because if you're always in doubt, always talking a small game, that is basically how you're defining yourself in the environment around you. So talking big, they say if you shoot for the stars, you will land on the moon. And, all of those things, they're old adages, but they have a lot of truth rooted in them. So you notice, in fact, there's a beautiful documentary on Donald Trump. I think it's on Netflix. Just notice how he talks. Everything is just fantastic, over the best, this, and see what he's built. I mean, what he's accomplished is wonderful, but there's so many more, people coming through that traditional, conventional route who are more deserving of the president's office. But he has built it. Why? Because he talks that big game. He creates that for himself. And that change, so it's just a mental shift as well. So hard work is just one part of it. It is every word that you speak, how you carry yourself, how you think, how you inspire people around you. All those things add up into creating
100%.
luck.
I love what you said, even about the shock experience. And truly, sometimes it is who we're surrounding ourselves with, the environment we're in, who we're getting up, with, or, whose, ecosystem are we really in. I think all that makes a big difference, to success.
Yeah. And the shark looks at the glass bowl around itself and defines itself by the glass bowl. It's about you deciding that, no, I live in the fucking ocean. And that is what I'm going to let myself be defined by.
Any interesting poker stories that happened, someone that you met on a table that, really stood out, or, something that you think our viewers and listeners would find to be an interesting incident?
What I find is that poker has this image of being played in back alleys and basements with cigars and alcohol, all of that. The most interesting thing about poker is it's a bunch of nerds. The guys are just IIT kids or IIM kids, or even internationally, they're these really sharp, technically trained nerds who are very shy kids. Actually, they're very socially awkward. A lot of them have conditions like ADD, Asperger's, and some sort of social withdrawal condition. Including me, I have some form of ADHD for sure. So everybody is just this awkward, nerdy kid. And that is what I find really interesting, that is the kind of people that the game attracts. And in movies it's romanticized by James Bond and the guys who are the coolest guys playing. It's actually, so that's why when people ask me, hey, are you intimidated, but you're playing with so many guys on the table,
Right.
you're often the only girl on the table, or there's one other person. I'm like, the guys are intimidated by me because they're so awkward when a girl comes and sits next to them, because they're so socially awkward.
So true.
And they're such nerds, and I take full advantage of that.
Yeah.
I will stare them down. I will make moves that they never think a woman is supposed to make.
Of course.
So I think that's an interesting part that I've experienced as a very unique experience as a
Right.
poker player, which men usually won't.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate.
Experience.
And especially on the tournament scene, I think again everyone is very sound technically. They have all the math down, and like you said, they've probably done like brilliantly in school or college or whatever in math as well.
Yeah.
When someone would say that is it tough being a woman in a man's world on the poker table, I'm like, dude, what are you saying? I said straight away you have an edge.
I believe I have an edge, and I discovered that, and I used it to my advantage. A lot of women do feel a little out of place or shy, but I basically realized that I'll always be underestimated when I'm running big bluffs. So I will over bluff a lot of spots. And
Right.
so I was able to, make those patterns and decide, okay, this line works for me and that line works for me. So
Right.
obviously having the theoretical knowledge, and we call it game theory optimal and
Sure.
exploitative.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to exploit people based on their tendencies.
Do you
and
want to
based
talk a
on-
little bit about that? Because I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, so one of the things is your perceived image.
Mhm.
You should always be aware. One thing is where they say, that famous movie line, if you can't spot the sucker in the first X minutes, then
Right.
you're the sucker.
Yeah.
But it's actually not what you are trying to spot. It's
Right.
actually how everybody else looks at you.
Agreed.
So you decide what your image is. And in tournaments, it's very interesting because every table is a new shuffled tournament. It's a
Right.
new
Right.
set of people. It's
Right.
very few people overlapping in these
Mhm.
vast 10,000
Mhm.
player
Mhm.
tournaments. So every table, you actually have a new image.
Right.
And sometimes I've come in as the person who's lost a lot of hands early on. So they'll just think, hey, she's a weak player.
Right.
Or I've come in as somebody who's playing very less hands. So they might be thinking I'm a tight player.
Right.
So you have to be very aware of what other people are thinking of you and make the moves according to that. So if they think you're a tight player, you can take a few loose spots.
Of
Or
course.
if they see me winning a lot of hands early on, they would try to come and bully me. So you have to be very
Right.
in
Right.
tune with
Yeah.
your perceived image.
Yeah,
That is number
yeah.
one. That is why, rewinding back to the Donald Trump example, it's all about perceived image.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I
does he
think
have-
a valuable lesson, and again, for just everyone who's listening in, you don't really know much about how poker works. So you have the tournament play, and what Nikita is mentioning, that sometimes you could start on table number 1, but you get moved around, so then you get moved to like a table number 6 or a 13, something like that, and that'll happen fairly frequently. I mean, it could happen in 4 to 6 hours, maybe sometimes even less.
Yeah.
When you're in a cash game, okay, you just sit down and you're sitting down for as long as you want. I mean, I know I've gone maybe 36 hours, in a stretch. And then obviously in 36 hours, everyone kind of has figured everyone out, or at least they think they do. But in a tournament, you really haven't figured anyone out because you're always moving around. And every time you come and you sit down, you're starting afresh. Right. And again, I think lessons, for everyone listening in for business and work and all of that, people will always be making judgment of you. So I think it's important in terms of, how you really show up. And then obviously in terms of, how you're delivering and how you're going ahead and, doing your stuff, I think judgments will be made, over there as well. So I think that's, probably the similarity that you could, bring in on that side as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, so it's really sad. We are speaking so in depth about the technical nature of the game. It's a skill game. There are
Right.
all of this going on. It's theoretical. I approach it very academically. I coached with the best coaches of the world. You
Nice.
name them, Ben CB, BBC. I've done every course there is out there.
Right.
And even then, the Indian scene is, not supporting even after it has won many cases in high court
Right,
as being a
right.
skill game.
Yeah.
It's just complete lazy governance that the government has put a blanket ban on all real money gaming without giving poker a chance of coming out as a skill game and being able to form a different.
Yeah, and that happened very recently. That the government has banned all online gaming, and big blow for the community, right? Because there's so many
Huge.
people who were.
Huge.
There's so many jobs. There were so many sites like the Addas and so many more that have really come up. And now they have to shut shop. I mean, today I was reading that Hike, which was Sunil Mittal's son's company. They're shutting down because they had a online gaming piece as well, and it's a crazy amount of job losses and more. What are your friends saying about this? Because surely, I mean, there's a lot of people who are pretty upset, right?
Yeah. So the number one thing is the unfairness of not being able to put it in a different category. Skill versus chance and all of that.
Right.
The other thing is that I think the government was basically unable to track where the money, the movement of money.
Right.
A lot of companies were based offshore, for example.
Right.
And they've given the excuse of it being for ideological reasons, but it's none of that. They're just unable to track where money is going in a lot of sports betting and things like that,
Correct.
which is nothing to do with the poker industry. Thankfully, as poker players, we are, we have the skill, right? So you can play live tournaments in different places. Obviously, it's a hard one. A lot of people are pivoting to things like trading, which has a lot of skill transference, for example. I feel poker players are well equipped to have a lot of skills in life to be able to transfer differently, move out of India. It's still so new,
right?
But there are options, yeah. But yeah, it was as long as it lasted, a very good industry, did a lot of good things. These companies that came up eventually created a lot of value,
right? And unemployment, I'm sure.
Employment, a lot of awareness around the game being one of skill.
Right.
And at the end of the day, let's be real, GB. Everybody and their mothers are playing poker today in the entire world. Like everybody's exposed to poker. Everybody loves the game.
Yeah.
Anybody who has any sort of intelligence, for example, like VCs and fund managers and all, they love poker.
Yeah.
I know people who run like some of the biggest wealth management companies in India who have weekly games, right? And so, yeah, it's it's just a hard time to be in India, and we're hoping, even while they imposed a 28% GST,
correct, still manageable, right?
On deposits,
yeah.
And even after that, so it's kind of like they taxed us, took everything, we kept giving them, and even then they just ban you, and so Indian environment is a bit too difficult. Like tomorrow it could be anything based on ideological reasons. It could be an astrology platform. Why? Because for whatever reason.
Correct.
And
yeah, I think here it just became this thing about various sports betting sites, or indirectly. I don't know how Dream 11 etc. all work, but I know a lot of people were hooked on to fantasy betting on sport as well. I never really got into it, but I think that was the target, and I think this is just collateral damage.
Exactly.
Again, and I was in Chennai day for yesterday for an event, and I was at one of the malls, and there was this huge banner, and it said bridge tournament, 1 crore prize money, and I took a pic and sent to my dad, and then I'm just thinking, why could poker not have a tournament in Chennai, where there's a 1 crore payout, and it would just be fantastic for the game, right? Kids today are really taking to it. As you mentioned, anyone who's got anything to do with finance, poker's become very fashionable. And even if people don't play, they still want to have like a nice set at home, or they're like, oh yeah, we'll organize something. And it wasn't like this back in the day. I mean, I think when I first got introduced to poker, it was 2008, and I was finishing up some work at the Canton Fair in China. And I walk into the Grand Lisboa, and it would be for a table game probably. And it said, Texas Hold'em in Macau for the first time. And it was Stanley Ho's, old Grand Lisboa poker room. And I went and I got whipped, okay? Like whipped, okay? I'm like, but it was so fascinating. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And I came back and I went to Khan Market and I'm like, I want a book on poker. And they're like, we have a book which has got, 5-6 different games, and poker is one of them. I'm like, no, that's not what I need. And then I remember like going online, and I think I started with Texas Hold'em for Dummies. It just seemed like a good book to start with, right? And then from there, I must have bought like everything. And then 2 years later, I went to the IPC and I played, in 2010, September. And I know Nikhil, so my friend Shantanu, Nikhil, like the designers. Mm-hmm. So Nikhil and we both went down, and we went to another player who was super sound. And that guy gets knocked out really early. Day 2, Nikhil goes to the final table and comes second. All right.
Oh, wow.
which is crazy. And he's like, what's higher, a flush or a straight? I'm like, and you came second. Right? That's just crazy. And the next day, so I'm on like main event, final table. So we're all there. We're toasting with the champagne and everything else.
You were the final table. Wow.
And of course, I went on the bubble and I busted out because they had like bubble was like 7. And of course, Samir Tonsi, who was the organizer of the tournament, he went up against me. And of course, my wife keeps telling me the signs that you're not supposed to be playing this game and focusing on your work. So she's like, all these signs are coming from up above. So we spoke about like trading in the stock markets, the same, right? So every time I'm going for this really big win, like something happens. And I'm like, shit, I would have like, made like a potload of cash, which is like, I think you're supposed to make it working hard. But again, coming down to this entire point that it was an ecosystem and at that time, nobody knew poker. But over time, like go to a Diwali party, and of course you're in Delhi, and here everyone's playing, Teen Patti. Today, if you don't have poker at a Diwali party, they'd be like, "What? There's no poker here." So it's changed a lot, from nobody playing to now it being the game of choice for most.
In fact, schools in Japan are teaching kids poker.
Not surprised
because it and Japan is so far ahead from any other country. It teaches you mental models on how to make decisions under imperfect conditions. And even MIT and Harvard have courses. Harvard, not so sure. MIT has a credit course on poker.
Nice.
India's IIM Cozy Gorde teaches poker as a credit course as well.
Right.
So it's actually theoretically very interesting,
For
the
sure.
game. And and about your stories, I feel that the thing is that it is about just not giving up. It's one of those things. You just gotta keep hammering, keep getting back up. But within a framework. Not saying you lose everything. Like, hey, this is your framework, and this is how you see you can stretch this framework. And it's about just because you just need to have that level of determination.
And what you also said, right, in terms of you learning from the best, I think it's very, very important. And this applies for everything. It applies for work, it applies for business, whatever field you're actually entering, you have to get mentored from, the best in the field if you want to be really good. I mean, I always told people that, okay, if you want to climb Mount Everest, you're not going to do it with someone who's never climbed Mount Everest before, right?
Exactly.
You want to find like a great Sherpa who's done it multiple times and you want to go with them. So I think the mistake that a lot of people make is that, even when we spoke about, derivative trading a short while ago, a lot of people, and I see a lot of these kids because, again, I train with a lot of people who are very big on derivatives. It's again been one of my passions along with, the poker piece. They just come in, they've watched a few things on Instagram, they've watched a few videos on YouTube and they think they can crush it and they blow their bankroll. But again, there's discipline, there's training. You have to find a good mentor. And I think that's something that a lot of people, miss out on.
You have to go through all the steps. There's no shortcut to success.
There's no shortcut to success. Right. Important lesson over there. And especially a lot of people would, walk in and they would think that, I've just come to Vegas for a couple of days or go out for a couple of days and I'm going to get really rich really quick. Hell, that's not going to happen. Not on a poker table for sure.
Yeah. Definitely not. I would money was never a motivation for me. That's one of the things. It was the competition. It was solving the game. Money was just a byproduct. And I know it sounds cheesy, but poker was actually like that for me because money was just a way of keeping score. It was an instrument to play the game. It was never really to make money. I think that's where a lot of people because honestly, you can't love money if you want to play poker. Because there will be big losing spells and, you should...
So if I was to ask you, like, what was your why? Like Simon Sinek always talks about, finding your why. So what was your why for taking up the game and taking this path? If money isn't... And of course, money can never be a why. Money can be a byproduct. So what really was your why?
I like I said, I held that trophy for the first time and I'm like, I want every trophy that is out there. Just... the idea of beating so many people with your intellect, that was my why. And I didn't want second, third, money. A lot of people are like, hey, I made the final table, I cashed in. Irrelevant to me. It was always just the trophy for me.
Nice.
So it was always about winning.
And you're doing the sport proud, you're doing the country proud. So I'm sure there'll be many more wins, coming in as well.
I hope so. But it's, honestly, I've been on the operations side, the business side for a few years.
Right.
I did so much in the last decade, which was never done before, especially by an Indian woman.
Right.
There was no template, right? managed to unlock a fair few wins. Recently got awarded by Shashi Tharoor,
Saw that.
which
Yeah,
was
congrats, yeah.
when I got the call, I was like, "Are you serious? Really? Is this something?" And literally 1 week later, they banned the industry. So there was one high and one big quick low. But so when you manage to unlock such, I would call them anomalies in a way, right? Because nobody else is doing it. There's no template. I finally felt like I had reached a certain point where I'm done with the play aspect of it, and now I want to do something that's more scalable.
Nice.
Because poker is not scalable, right?
No.
It's trading your time for money, and
it's tough.
and my why was never money. So when I achieved a few milestones, my motivation is now to build some real value, use the lessons I've learned from the game, apply them in the real world, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm exploring. So in a way, the Indian man was probably something. Right. Where,
a blessing in disguise.
A blessing in disguise.
Nice.
I hope so. Let's see.
Nice.
But at the same time, I definitely want to say that whatever I do, there will be immense skill transference from poker to, in application, because there are such important lessons that the game teaches you that I'll be stupid to not use them moving forward.
Oh, so, without a doubt. Yeah. And I think, just what you bring to the table, and not only the poker table, but the table of, like any company that you associate with, just in terms of, temperament, in terms of, how you handle, yourself and environment, I think that's priceless. And especially if you get into the world of, and you've of course trained in finance and all of that as well. So I'm sure if something does come in, even as an entrepreneurship opportunity or, a collab some way, I'm sure it'll go really well over there as well. You recently also did do something on TV, right? Or like at least on reality TV and OTT. How was that as an experience?
I love how that's the last thing that's coming up right now, and that you're genuinely interested in the subject of poker, because so far all my interviews have been all about Traitors. Right. So I like that.
Yeah.
Traitors was an interesting experience. So they called me and they said, we want to put a poker player on
specifically a poker player is what they asked for.
Player, yes.
Interesting.
It's a psychological game, and I heard reality TV, and in 1 second I was like, there's no way I'm getting on reality TV, because I'm not that type of person who's hurling abuses at other people and trying to do something egregious to get camera attention or something like that.
Right.
And they assured me that no, this is a psychological game. It's a mind game. You will use bluff, deception, all of those things to outwit your opponents. I'm like, hey, this sounds like
fun. Yeah.
It sounds fun. Let's do it. And they also told me that we're going to have people from different walks of life. You're going to bring a psychologist, an astrologer, a scientist, a lawyer. But they gave me, I went through multiple rounds of interviews. And after 4 or 5 rounds and talking to a psychiatrist, filling 500 MCQs, finally they're like, you're in. And I'm like, okay, this better be worth it. And I go there and there's no information about what the show is going to entail.
Right.
I didn't even know Karan Johar is going to be the host.
Right.
And I go in and there's 19 people from TV background, like content creators or rap stars. Or everybody is in the TV industry. Everybody lives in Bombay. And I'm the only one who's from outside the industry. Right. And the idea was initially to get psychologists, lawyers, doctors, whatever, different people.
Maybe that wasn't good for the TRP or whatever.
I don't know why they took that call, but I seem to be the only one who made it from that outside world.
Intelligent side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was completely out of my depth. So I decided my strategy is going to be survival.
Right.
So I'm just going to figure out a way to survive the longest. I'm not going to play aggressive. I'm going to play passive. So that's where the poker game came in. So sometimes you go on the offense, you play aggressive, you try to take control, you try to tug. My thing was taking the absolute backseat, let all of them fight it out, eliminate each other while I slide by.
That's tournament strategy, right?
That's tournament strategy, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was crazy that it actually worked. I managed to survive till the end. And once I was in the end, then I'm like, you know what? Let's do a process of elimination. There was this girl, Urfi, who I won the show with. Both of us had a conversation, which, by the way, wasn't on TV. And I realized that she is definitely not the traitor because, we spoke about some stuff where it was just too impossible to be like, not true. Then I'm like, it has to be one of the other guys, right? So we just decided between us that we're just going to eliminate all the guys. So that's when we went on the offense. So I switched my strategy on the final table from passive to aggressive and ended up winning the show. So yeah, everybody's like, hey, she got so lucky and all of that. And the whole thing is that my strategy was to survive. It wasn't luck. It was letting everyone else take the limelight, fight it out.
Right.
Because in the middle of the show, I got an invitation to be a traitor as well. And I declined because my strategy was to lay low. And if I'm the traitor, then I'm under the crosshairs. I'm making decisions. People will target me. The other traitors will throw me in the... I said, my thing is to slide by. So it's great because this is something tournament strategies taught me as well.
Awesome.
And, being a poker player, winning the show, they didn't give me too much airtime because I'm not good for the audience. There are 19 people who are actual TV personalities, but very cool experience, very different experience. So yeah.
Yeah,
nice.
I'm sure worth experiencing for sure. And again, for everyone who's listening in, even in a poker tournament, right? As you're, moving down towards the bubble, and the bubble is where you actually get paid, and eventually, obviously, the winning, your chips are dwindling, the blinds are rising, okay? And what happens is you have to kind of, also hope for a bit of luck where people kind of knock each other out, and so that you actually come into the money. So that's exactly what Nikita did on Traitors. And I think that's
a good analogy, the bubble. The tournament bubble,
And I actually didn't watch the show, but I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners have. But
it's too Gen Z for you. I don't think you'll enjoy it.
Let's do a bit of a rapid fire. I had some rapid fire questions. Okay. So let's do a bit of rapid fire. And of course, there's a rapid fire, like a hamper at the end of the rapid fire, or the end of the podcast as well. Yes, of course, we run a gifting company, so you're obviously going to get a whole bunch of cool stuff. Okay, so we do a bit of rapid fire, and the first thing that comes to your mind, one word, one sentence, whatever.
Ooh, okay, I'm nervous.
All right. Okay, most memorable poker moment. Easy one to get you started.
My second Arya final table.
Awesome. The biggest bluff that you've ever pulled off.
On the Game of Gold versus David Williams.
Nice. And that's another show. That's a show that you should definitely watch. So the Game of Gold, which is, was it on Netflix or just YouTube? Or?
Just YouTube.
Just YouTube. Yeah, awesome. Your favorite poker hand that you almost always enter a pot with?
Aces. Sorry, I'm boring.
No, that's cool.
Always aces.
Before you got here, I was actually telling the guys about how aces could actually get crushed by a 2-7, and they're like, how is that even possible? And I'm just telling them how it works. Kuch bhi ho sakta hai poker mein. Right. One poker player that you'd love to go heads up against?
Fedor Holz.
Your favorite poker city in the world?
Vegas.
Of course. Your favorite poker room in the world?
There's a very beautiful poker room in Monaco. It's open air. They open it has a retractable roof and it opens up to the ocean, and then in the evening they cover it. Gorgeous.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Must do that
you
as well.
You should go.
Yeah,
yes.
That's one I haven't done actually. Yeah. So awesome. But thanks for that. If not poker, what would you possibly be doing today?
I like the world of venture capital.
I think you crush it over there. Mm-hmm. Right. Who's the toughest opponent that you've ever faced in a game?
Oh, I've played with so many of the legends. Definitely. Fedor probably, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One song that's on your poker playlist.
I really like listening to Ludovico Einaudi.
Mm-hmm.
He's an Italian pianist, so it's instrumental music.
Nice.
And like we were talking about flow states and all, so it really helps me slip into flow states. Calms me down.
Love that. One lesson that poker has taught you that you use every day.
Self-mastery. Your biggest enemy is you.
I like that. Biggest enemy is you. Good one. Most underrated skill in poker.
The thing I said about perceived image, realizing your perceived image.
Okay.
And switching gears. Knowing when to switch gears.
Favorite poker movie?
Rounders.
Did you see Lucky You as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, Rounders is of course.
Drew
Barrymore and
yeah.
But okay, of course, Rounders.
I like Molly's Game as well.
Also.
Yeah.
Worst poker myth or a myth that people believe when it comes to poker?
That poker is like teen patti.
100%. Yeah.
God.
Okay. One of the first things that you bought with your poker winnings?
Oh, wow. Vacations.
Yeah. Poker or business, where do you think strategy matters more?
Equally.
Yeah, I would agree. What's harder, building consistency or handling failure?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Building consistency.
Yeah. How do you reset after a bad beat in poker or life?
Remove yourself from your head. Look at yourself in third person and realize what you're going through. The tilt, the only way to recognize it by being an observer to that emotion.
Love that. One big mistake that beginners make in poker.
Tilting.
Mm. Yeah. One trait that separates the champions from the rest.
Resilience.
Like that. The legacy that you want to leave behind in the world of poker.
I think if I can build awareness around the nature of the game and peg it as what it is, a true strategy and skill game.
All right. Last 2 or 3 ones. If you had a poker nickname, what would it be?
One of my very first nicknames was Wasp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I got very fixated with that. It came from the girl with the dragon tattoo. And there was something very badass about her. So yeah, I liked Wasp a lot.
Like that. Finish the sentence. Okay. Poker is like life because.
Poker is like life because you have the ups and downs the same way you have while you play a game of poker.
Yep.
And life tests you in many ways. There are big wins and big losses, and you have to be grateful for the wins and very accepting and humble about the losses. And that is how I feel they're similar.
That's brilliant. It's like a life coach or example. So it's a good statement there. Awesome. So definitely a big hamper coming your way on that one as well. And that was super rapid fire, by the way. But let's talk about the element of trust. Okay, and in poker especially, they say like never trust a poker player, the poker face, and there's how people are always bluffing. Stuff that you want to tell our listeners and viewers about the trust element of things.
Yeah. So see, I am a very suspicious person myself. Maybe because I know the ways in which people can play certain games, manipulate things like that. So my baseline is always starting from, guilty unless proven innocent, and that's actually not a good mental model. That's something I'm trying to improve on, because I think most people, when they come from a place of innocent until proven guilty, they get more out of life. But I'm always just so suspicious. I'm always thinking, what is their agenda? Why are they, what do they want out of me? What is, I'm always spiraling in those questions. And I honestly don't know, because it's obviously a defense mechanism. It keeps you safe.
Right.
It's not a specific thing to poker players or anything. No. It's just,
life,
just life.
Yeah. And I think caution is always a good thing. Especially when, you're in the limelight, people will want things, from you, and in terms of the access that you may have, or, anything like that. So I think, it does make sense to be someone who says no a lot more than, yes. And thank you for saying yes to this podcast, by the way, because I know you did have
it's my pleasure. I've really had a great time so far.
A chance saying no, but I think it's okay. I think that's okay. And, over time, I think, again, if someone is, persistent, if someone, comes across as genuine, then by all means, I think, get into a deeper conversation, but it's okay to be cautious.
For example, like we touched upon the entertainment industry. I actually found that a lot of people are very agenda driven, and that is a survival instinct.
Right.
Like they are trying to just get to know the right people, get good work, but somehow I'm unable to operate like that. I'm unable to operate with agenda. I just am who I am. And I just don't know any other way, because I can't complicate my life. So, but a lot of people, so I find it really hard to trust people, definitely. And I don't know if it's a poker thing or what is the right way to go about it.
I think potentially upbringing as well, because your mom was a teacher, your dad was in the forces. So I think a lot of it comes, from the upbringing side as well. And of course, all said and done, hang out in a casino, you come across all characters, right?
Exactly.
So I think, definitely the lessons to be learned, and even from there.
Yeah. People are very definitely in the environment of casinos and where money is involved, people can be very manipulative or strategic and all of that. So I guess it helps to approach the world with extreme caution, like
Yeah.
you said. Yeah.
No, and the reason why I say it's hard to trust a poker player, because I mean, of course, again, I'm talking from the perspective of their cards. I mean, made some amazing friendships, on poker tables. I mean, for me, poker is a great way to spend an evening after, work. And I love going to, and the social aspect is just so cool that you go down to, let's say, a poker room in Europe or in the US, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's very chatty. Of course, Macau is today very intolerable because everyone is very robotic. The dealers never chat. In Vegas, the dealers are always talking and they're always, like making conversation and all of that.
Yeah.
In Macau, it's actually painful now because, no one, I mean, even if they are, there'll probably be like 6 Chinese guys and they're all conversing in Mandarin, and you'll try and start up a conversation with someone and they're not really, the most chatty anyway. Macau's become painful. It's a place where I learned to play poker, but I don't really go back. But even otherwise, like I said, people aren't, I mean, they're not obviously going to be transparent with their cards and what they have until you show them, until you throw in the money, they're never going to show you their cards. But I think it's also like a myth where people believe never trust a poker player. I've had some amazing friendships, that I've made on the poker table. I mean, people that I go back to even like 2010 IPC. I mean, there's Avinash Rajpal, he's in Bombay, and he's doing some great work in real estate, etc. We still catch up. We just still meet for a coffee or, a drink, etc. So, yeah.
I mean, my perspective on this is that I don't think there's any correlation between being a poker player and being untrustworthy. I think people are just their personalities, like the probability of having a certain personality. It's the exact same. The only thing is it's magnified and it comes out quicker on the poker table, or like, the way they handle the money, the scores, the tilt. So you just see it more clearly. And people are able to hide it when all of these elements are not involved. So I think that is,
you get an insight into a person and maybe their true personality.
Exactly.
In terms of how they reacted.
The true personality really comes out. Because poker really tests you and pressures you. A lot of today's systems, like even Amazon shopping and a lot of these big online companies, are built on even Instagram, for example, are built on the principles of unpredictable reward. So the algorithms are constantly built in a way that they keep you hooked to that dopamine, unpredictable reward, certain color, certain ways. Like the algorithm is just shaped to, gives you hits of dopamine. One like is a hit of dopamine. But I think that is one of the things that poker does. It is a mechanism of unpredictable reward. And that is why people get so... that is why it comes with addiction disclaimers and all of that.
For sure.
But it's the same as being on Instagram or Facebook, or if you have the predisposition to it. So why I bring up the unpredictable reward system and why you get hooked and all is how you really get an insight into the other person's personalities, because now they have become ingrained in the system of this, and now they're fully exposed as a human being. So I'm able to tell how a person is by just spending 1 hour with them on a poker table.
Nice. No, brilliant. And I think, again, that's going to be a big lesson, for business and work, because I always talk about that, success in business and, again, in entrepreneurship and even otherwise is about reading people, right? And psychometrics is the whole science, right? So when you understand people's personalities, like I was just at a training yesterday and I was telling people, I said, some of us went to like Christian missionary schools, and in moral science class, you were always told the golden rule is treat everyone how you want to be treated. Right? But that's actually not correct, because what actually applies is the platinum rule, which is treat everyone how they want to be treated. Right?
Interesting. I've not heard this before.
Yeah. So when you're having a conversation with someone, you actually want to mold yourself to, what would be of interest to them.
That's the exploitative strategy. And that's something I've always applied and it works well. You're right. Yeah.
So that truly is, something that works really well, in work as well.
Yeah.
And I think, again, you have
adaptability. That's another big
key.
lesson. Yeah. Adaptability, knowing when to switch gears. Poker is all about adapting to how many chips you have in front of you. At one point, you can have 100,000. You could be down to 10,000, and suddenly you have to switch your strategy. So adapting to different people, different stack sizes, different environments, who you're playing with, everything. Definitely. That's the same way, like you said. You treat them the way they want to be treated.
So true.
Yeah.
And what about the ego aspect? Because, sometimes, that comes into play, again, in business, in life. I'm sure on the poker table as well. How does one handle, ego? I mean, okay, I'm not saying that would have happened to you, but let's just say someone's won a massive tournament, right? And then after that, there's a dry run for a really long time. How does one handle that mentally? And also, again, come back to the ego piece, like thoughts on that?
So, poker is very humbling as a game, honestly. Because you really get beaten up a lot.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's about keeping the trend line up. One poker player said something like, I haven't fact checked, but his name is Patrick Leonard, very famous coach and player as well. He said something like, poker, you lose 82% of the time. You just have to make sure that 18% of the time you win,
right,
that the score is abnormal. Because obviously your investment is, say, 10
Yeah.
rupees and you end up winning 1,500. So the return on investment that 18 times, 18% of the time is so high. But you are getting beaten up for the other 82%. I have not fact checked this, but it sounds about right.
possible.
And
Yeah,
so there's something, because you will take a lot of beats, you will lose a lot of tournaments till you finally win some tournaments, right? But the return on investment is just so high that it completely justifies.
Of course.
So about the ego, of course, it's very humbling. But what I've noticed is a very different thing between men and women. Men have a lot more ego in the sense that, okay, if somebody beats somebody in a hand, if they bluff and they show the bluff, and now that guy's like, I'm going to get him. And then that guy comes back with ego, and now he's not playing his perfect game.
Yeah.
Because all he's fixated on is getting revenge with that other guy. And this, I notice, happens a lot in a lot of bluffing, getting under people's skin, playing them in that way. That is something I have noticed women are much better at controlling.
And it's probably also a geographical thing. I'm sure there's like a Delhi wala, isse tu janta nahi, like follow, right? That's a big thing, with the people up north. And I think down south, they would be slightly more calm. They're like, okay, shit happens. And so
exactly.
I think it's also geographical. Similarly, I think in the States, if you have someone who's like from one of the redneck states, I think they might respond a little more, differently and all of
I've
that.
had people egoistically, if I bluff them off or like just battle against me, bet, and I'm unperturbed.
You'd use it to your advantage.
I use it to my advantage, or I'm just amused. Like, it's not getting under my skin at all.
Right.
But the guys really get worked up, and that's the thing about poker. It exposes your personality very quickly.
Very true. Very true.
Like know which geography they are from pretty much by playing poker with them.
So true. So true. Yeah, I remember one time I was playing, poker in this. It was in Amsterdam, and at the Holland Casino, and there was this elderly gentleman, and of course it was punk kids, and they were being all rude to, and this guy looked like Sean Connery. Might have been him, who knows? But he looked just like him, and these guys were like bad mouthing him, and they're like, uncle, da da da, and an hour and a half later, he had everyone's chips, and all these guys were out, and he's like, who's daddy now, right? So it was interesting, and again, it was like an ego thing, and this guy's just calm, he's taking it in, not really letting it get to him. Those guys are drinking, like, we'll see the scores at the end of the night. Yeah, there's just some funny stories that happen. I remember one time I was in Macau, and there was this husband, wife, they just got married, and they came down and sat down and started playing, and they were doing okay for a bit. And I'm like, got into a conversation. I said, where do you start playing? They're like, oh, we just play on Zynga or, on the PlayStation. And I'm like, okay, you're winning, you should leave. And it's like, no, we're going to pay for a whole trip. And I'm like, oh no, here go another one, right? And the same thing, so they start losing, and they start going to the the ATM, putting on more money. I'm like, chale jao yaar. Right?
Oh, wow.
So again, I said, what's up? He's like, ego pe le li maine baat. I'm like, Delhi wale ho? He's like, haan. I said, ho gaya kam. So yeah.
No, ego and poker don't mix. The same way alcohol and poker don't mix.
And I think ego, even in work, in life, in business, I think it's something that you need to be very mindful of. And, I started spending a lot of my time down south, and you just see over there, like, and a lot of these guys are like, oh, they're like, you're from Delhi. I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay, and then they look at you differently. Because they just believe that anyone north of Bombay, has a problem. So yeah. But
and that, I know, it's overgeneralizing, but they're not far off. Given that, there's a lot of aggression up north, and it's just cultural differences, I guess. Yeah, it's
awesome.
I
really did enjoy this conversation, and like I said, thank you so much, for making it. And I think there's just so much, and as guys and girls, as you guys go through this, you'll find that there were just such important nuances and lessons that you can take away. Not saying that you need to get into becoming a professional poker player, which is really hard. But if you can, why not? And the point is that just take a lot of these lessons away and apply them to your life, apply them to work, apply them to, your office spaces. And I think really, really good things will happen. And let's not forget your gifts from the hamper thing.
Oh, wow.
So,
is there anyone who walks out of this podcast without the hamper?
No, unlikely. So yeah, a few things from our friend Shantanu and Nikhil. So this is something they created, which is So the luggage tag for your travels, a sunglass case for your sunglasses when you're on the table, of course, a passport case. So that's something for you from Shantanu and Nikhil.
Beautiful.
And then for writing down your thoughts, I'll probably give you a
So,
So we thought to give you a Shantanu and Nikhil, a pen as well. I told them to put the name on the clip, but they have an end, almost like a Netflix logo, but it is for Nikita. So, that was something for you as well. And
look at that! I'm gonna sign my next $1 billion deal with this one.
awesome. Yeah, look forward to that. And then
I
of
love
course,
the packaging.
there was also a Shantanu Nikhil scarf for you. And then something which I thought would be very interesting, which is when you are playing poker online. So this is something that
beautiful.
most welcome. So this is something that it actually goes onto your computer, and if I show you how it works, I'll show you on my computer. So it basically goes onto your laptop. It does, and then so this will go on here. So sometimes we want our phone when we're on the computer. So this will just like clip onto that, and so you can have access to your phone while it's there. So yeah, that's something for you as well.
Karan, are you looking at this? Your coffee with Karan needs an upgrade. Look at the quality of these gifts. I'm going to call him and let him know.
Of course. And then, of course, because you were on the podcast, we have the Let's Chat with GB coffee mug for you as well. So, yeah,
we have a
just
new home, so I need some stuff for the kitchen for sure.
But again, like I said, thank you so much for making it. I know you were in Delhi for a very short time, and really appreciate you coming on and being on this podcast. And,
it was my pleasure. And definitely leaving. You're hijacking my reward system right now. Dopamine max. I love it.